We have an engine coming in from the UAE. All right, so we have a very special project coming together now, and I have been wanting to do something with this vehicle for quite some time. I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to be, but I had a pretty good idea. And for those of you that have seen it before, it is our 1990 Y60 Patrol. It is right-hand drive, two-seater. It actually had a panel mod done to it, so the rear windows are already blanked out. And this thing is four-wheel drive. It can drive up and over anything.
Oh, it didn't even flinch. Come on, give her something hard.
But if you've seen some of those other rigs on the other side of the planet, they have quite the engine package in them. My plan is to build, from what I understand, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, this will be the first TB48 Y60 Patrol in the United States. We have an engine coming in from the UAE. We ordered one up from the other side of the world. It's shipping in, and we're starting to strip this thing down. We're gonna get the old diesel motor out. It comes with a TD42, which is a 4.2 liter, straight six, diesel, no turbo. Slowest thing in the lot outside of our Condor, which is a 4-cylinder, non-turbo. So we are going to shoot for 1,500 horsepower, four-wheel drive burnouts in this little machine. Let's party. TB48, you guys probably have never even heard of it before, but it is an engine that is, I mean, the easiest way to break it down, it's like taking two RB engines and stacking them on top of each other. It is a 4.8 liter dual overhead cam engine, and with a turbo on the side of it, it can make almost 1,000 horsepower. And then with it being built internally, it can be 2,000 horsepower. So it's of that same caliber of the VR38, which in my opinion is the greatest Nissan engine that's ever been built. However, I absolutely love the way RBs sound. The straight six, nothing beats it as far as the actual audible note that it creates. You know, we started working with a couple of different people, learning a little bit more about the RB engines, and maybe we'll do a project with one of those in the future, but until then, we wanted to look at the next greatest motor that Nissan's ever built, which is a TB48. And so to make all that power, it is not gonna come without, you know, a little bit of pros and cons, right? The pro is that it can make 2,000 horsepower. The con, it's huge, it's heavy, but it still is a means to an end to get us huge power, spinning all four tires, and giving us that killer straight six sound. The problem is, this engine never came in the States, and it's very difficult to find. They're actually harder and harder to find because guys on the other side of the world like to just make a lot of power and blow them up, and then throw them out. And so they're getting hard to find, kind of like an SR20. And so I had to do a lot of digging, and we finally found some engines that were, here's a block, here's a head, here's a bunch of pieces put together. And since nobody in the States really has an understanding of these motors, like yes, they could probably figure it out, but there's not really much of a manual for anyone to follow, trying to find torque specs and things like that. So I wanted to find one, at least to get this project going, that was gonna be a full swap. Because it's not only an engine that we're getting out of a later generation, you know, we're looking for the engine harness, the ECU, the transmission, transfer case, all of the bits that are gonna help us convert this older generation Patrol into the latest and greatest in technology and horsepower. So we wanted to go with a known full swap, and so I reached out to one of my buddies who has some connections over in the Middle East, and they were able to locate a full wrecked Patrol that has the TB48 in it, and they brought it in to their shop, stripped it down, every last nut and bolt and bracket and little thing that we need to make sure that we have everything to swap it into this earlier generation vehicle, especially because those parts aren't available here in the States. So that was the challenge. Trying to find a package that was fully complete. Like I said, there was a couple that were available, but when you're dealing with something that is as new as this, we can't just go to the rack and pick up an alternator, you know, for a TV. There would be just an immense amount of fabrication to make all of these components fit, and we were looking for something that was going to be a little more fitting of the chassis, as well as, you know, try not to stack too much on our plate because we were undergoing an entire rebuild on this chassis. Now from the outside looking in, it looks super clean. It was pretty clean. It had been repainted, you know, so we started to find little flaws, little bits of rust here and there. It was kind of like that, you know, the spit shine job. Not to say that the vehicle is compromised, but you know, you just find those little surface rust spots where the previous prep job wasn't done. It was just a scuff and spray, right, to make it look good and get it out the door. We wanted to go through the entire drivetrain, figuring out what we can keep and what we need to replace. And so the first thing we did, obviously, rip that old motor out. Motor's out, we can kind of get a little more of a view of the engine bay and what we're working with. It's huge, it's a truck engine bay. This is a body on frame type vehicle, so there's a lot of room in the engine bay for a huge straight six motor.
No. All right, feel better with that.
Oh boy.
Look at that. Making soup over here. Population 1 Jackson. You're doing great, sweetie.
Once we start peeling back the layers of the onion, we start to find those little bit of rust spots. The battery trays, of course, typical spot to find some rust. Both battery trays had rust underneath them, so we went ahead and cut and drilled those out, and we went and sanded and scuffed and got all the rust repair done in the engine bay so that we can get it ready for a fresh coat of steel it and make sure that that chassis is protected not only on the sheet metal side, but we're gonna take that all the way through to the frame and the drivetrain and all the suspension as well. So after we got the engine bay stripped out, the battery trays cut out, we actually took it down the street to an ice blast company and we're able to get the chassis fully ice blasted inside and out and get all that grime and grease and dust and dirt off of it. To get a proper restoration, you don't want to just do the old scuff and spray like I mentioned earlier. You want to make sure to get down into the nitty gritty, get all of it cleaned out. So we're all the way down to the metal and the primer, and we're gonna have a nice sticky tacky surface for when we apply that steel coatings underneath.
So what happens is it hits it at about a -107, and then it freezes it instantly, and the kinetic energy releases it from the substrate, and it leaves. That's why it's non-abrasive, and it leaves a nice smooth surface. Where you have other media, you're removing part of the substrate with the grime or dirt.
So now we got Jackson underneath and he is getting all those little nooks and crannies and making sure that we have a good setup so that we get our coating stuck to it and we make sure to preserve this chassis for many years to come. So we didn't want to spend all of our time just on the engine bay. Like I said, we got the whole underbody, the transmission tunnel, the backside of the engine bay, the frame rails themselves, the suspension, the axles, all of it got a fresh coat so that we know that this is going to be a chassis that lasts.
Cleaning out rain gutters. I think it looks good without the trim.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, there was some hidden surprises, obviously, but
That's part of the fun.
yep.
I even got in here for a little bit and started doing some scuffing on the roof. Those were those little patches I was starting to find when we peeled back some of those chrome accent pieces. We found some little drip tray rust, so we scuffed that out, cleaned that up, and got that ready for some paint because we were going to not only get a full wrap on this vehicle, but we're going to go through and get what was going to be able to be painted, and then wrap up the rest of the chassis. So it gives us a much better finish than just to try and throw a wrap over this. While we're doing all of this, we're still patiently waiting for our motor. The biggest thing, like I said, these engines do not exist in the States. This was the hardest part about this build. Any build worth doing or worth talking about is not gonna be easy. And so I've been working with the customs, working with our buddy, our broker, who's getting the engine for us, and it has been a daunting task. It was much more difficult than I expected it to be. We're having to do all this extra paperwork, the engine's getting stuck, they're asking if it's stolen, and so it was taking a lot of time and the clock is ticking because we are looking to have this thing done and running and ready for King of the Hammers. It's not gonna be racing, you know, we're not gonna build this car and take it right out and smash it against a rock, but we wanted to have it out there and do some fun runs and potentially even enter it into the Optima Soggy Dry Lake Bed race. It's a fun drag race where we put all these different cars, all these different chassis up against each other and we rip them on the dry lake bed. Called the Soggy Dry Lake Bed because there's always a big puddle in there somewhere. So you gotta watch out for that. As we start peeling back more of this chassis, we're finding little things that we can do to it. We don't have the engine, but we still have a chassis that we gotta not only restore, but upgrade with some suspension parts. We wanna get some lighting on there and even get into the interior, get some upgraded seats from Recaro, and even work in some 6-point harnesses because you know, we're looking to get rowdy in this thing. And it does not have a roll cage, so we are looking to do that maybe in the future, but for right now, we just wanna get this thing up and running and going. Focus on what we have and what we can do, and that is looking at some of the suspension work. And on the back end, we actually realized with punching out the old bushings and inserting some new ones, we could actually retrofit the rear shocks with the external reservoir from the Nismo off-road kit that comes in the Forsberg edition Nissan Frontier. So that was pretty cool. So we had an extra one off the shelf from our race truck and we're using that for some mock-up, took some measurements, got some fresh ones, punched those bushings out, got some new ones in. And so now we got some killer fresh Nismo off-road extra reservoir shocks in the back of this truck to help control that squat. So we are also looking into what we can get in the front of the truck because we still have to make sure that we don't have, you know, a rear end that's nice and stiff and steady and a front that's gonna be all bouncing and pogoing around. So probably gonna need to upgrade the springs on the front end because we are doing a different engine. However, they're both still straight 6s. The one's diesel, the one's gas. I don't know exactly what the weight differences are. We're gonna have to wait and figure that out once that engine arrives.
We're looking at some bumper designs for Patrol. It's obviously a very important piece of the vehicle.
Devin here made the bumper that's on the Titan look sick, and we're doing a similar look on this one, but changing it up just a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to mount some Nismo lights, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Mount those off of this tube, and now this guy. We have our factory bumper mounts. We're gonna clean this all up, but this is like a nice starting point. We got our width here. We're gonna get some caps on the end and take this box tube and do a vertical off of here to cover all this up. So it's just gonna be a nice round tube there, stanchion off, nice round tube on the top, straight to give it the boxy look still, and then have our 4 lights across the grill, ties in with these round guys. I think it's gonna be a nice fit. So the next move we gotta do now is to figure out, what were we saying, our angle, right?
Yeah, we got this top bar we're gonna put, this is like actually what the lights are gonna be mounted onto. Like,
The height and how forward we go with it.
it needs a little angle so it kind of looks cool.
Yeah. So let me grab a light, because this thing I think is gonna have to come even further forward, so go out a little bit more, like that-ish. So we can put our tabs on the back of this and then mount the lights. Okay, so this is our little Patrol parts rack. And we got these guys. Yeah, look at these. Beautiful. So, get a little mount bracket on there, but essentially, these guys are gonna go right about yonder. We brought out a couple extra hands. We got my boy Devin here, who is going to help us fabricate up a sick front bumper. He made us a bumper for the Titan, and I wanted to see something similar that has a modern but classic look to it on the front of this Nissan Patrol. And that way we can integrate a nice row of Nismo off-road lights. We're gonna go with a 6-inch, 4 of them. So we got 2 pairs, we got the spot and the fog. So we have a nice combination of light spread on this vehicle when we get out there and maybe do some night runs. Jumping into the interior, we got those Recaro Sportster off-road seats, and I love them. They got the gray look, so it matches the gray interior, giving it that nice killer 90s look to it, and so we're really fitting into the rad era proper. I didn't want to put some buckets in there, I didn't want to do some fixed seats, so wanted to make sure to have a nice reclinable seat. So it has the look, but also has a little bit of the, you know, the hold that we're looking for. Some good bolsters, but also the reclinability for some good comfort. We made up some 6 sliding rails for it, utilizing the factory bracket and fitting them to the Recaro seat. So we still have some nice forward and back sliding action with the reclinability. What more can you ask for? One of the coolest parts about any build is the wheel and tire package. And so we teamed up with, yet again, Yokohama to get us some killer tires. We're gonna go with the AT4s on this build, and we're doing a metric 35, so it's just under 35 inches in diameter. It's about a 34.5. So it gives us a little bit of room in the engine bay, but still gives us that big, wide, tough stance. And we got some KMC wheels because these old rigs have a huge center bore. They have a 110 mil center bore to fit the front hubs, and then the rear has that little stamp on that piece. So we have to make sure we get the right wheels that can fit that big lug pattern. And so KMC came through and they had a nice set of bead locks. They gave us that cool machine look, but with a 6-spoke finish, which I think is really true to the era of this vehicle. You can't have a good build without good wheels. You know, the wheel and tire package is what always brings a build together.
It's the way to go.
Boom, perfect. It's close enough. So we're knocking out the tasks, we're getting the interior done, we're getting the front end done, we're getting the suspension done, but we still don't have an engine. And so I got a bunch of guys in and on site, flying in from all over the country. We got Devin in from New York, we got Owen flying in from Pennsylvania. You know, we got Aaron coming down from NorCal, and you know, of course, Jackson here in the shop and Howie helping out as well. There's a whole crew of us ready to slap this thing together, but we don't have an engine. And this is, you know, one of the toughest parts about any build. Once it gets out of your hands, you know, there's only so many phone calls and messages and things you can make. If they're not gonna put it on the boat, it's not gonna make it to you. And when I say on the boat, I mean, we're air freighting this thing. A 600-pound pallet, and that is of no easy task. It is not lightweight, it is not easy to maneuver. However, it is definitely what we need to get this build done. I've been looking for one of these motors for months. And so when I finally found one that was a full package, we pulled the trigger. And we have been waiting for this thing for weeks. And this is how, just like when you see SEMA builds, right? You see a SEMA build come in, car goes in, gets pushed in, it's got no motor, it's got no drive shafts. We all know the Bluetooth drive shaft story. You know, not story, stories. It happens all the time. And this is where it gets out of your hand. You know, the builders can only do so much unless they have the parts they need. You know, PWR, they got us our intercooler and our radiator set up, 6 boosts, we got our exhaust manifold, we have our Garrett turbo, we have our Garrett wastegate, and so we got all these big bits coming together, and we are still waiting for that engine. So at this point, I don't know, it's annoying, it's frustrating, and I don't know how else to say it other than motor's not gonna make it. Motor's not gonna make it. It's even if it did, like, we're leaving in like 2 days. And like, we've pulled off some miracles, but like, I don't have a drop-off date. I'm not getting the phone call from the broker. I'm not getting the, you know, can you accept deliveries by 6 p.m. So knowing that we're still not gonna have the engine on hand by end of the day and or the next day, we're basically leaving on Friday, which is 2 days from now. And so all that being said, there's just absolutely no way, even if it was to arrive Friday morning, that we could get that motor slung in, cleaned up and all that, blah, 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 blah. So I hate to say it, but this is one of the very few times that I didn't make a deadline. And so it was a deadline that we had set for ourselves, and we wanted to make it because King of the Hammers is the biggest off-road event in the country. And like I said, we were not going to race it. We didn't have like a race event that we were missing. It was more so just a collective of off-road guys going out and partying and having fun. And we wanted to bring the coolest and wildest rig to the show. So we're still gonna send it. We're gonna get the truck out there. We just got it back from Wrap Legends, and I gotta say, this Mobil 1, this off-road Yokohama Optima wrap looks fantastic. So we went with the sick, classic Mobil 1 scheme, and they're the primary look on this vehicle. We got the white, we got the black, we got the red and blue stripes, we got the Pegasus up on the front fender, and a bunch of nice little hits of our supporters. Yokohama, we got Optima on there with the new red rocker livery that we got going on, as well as Nismo Off-Road for the parts and contributions that they've always offered to the Forsberg racing team. I gotta say, it's one of our coolest looking rigs. The logos and the livery is all period correct. I love it, it's fantastic, but it doesn't run. it doesn't run, which sucks. But the weird part is this is actually like our easiest pushing vehicle. so we're gonna get it loaded up on the Condor, we're gonna take it out, we're gonna put it on display in the Yokohama booth. The silver lining to it all is that we're gonna have that thing on display all week long, all like 10 days of King of the Hammers in the Yokohama booth right in the midway, which is cool. It's nice presence, nice look for the partners, and also for ourselves, showing off a cool rig.
Turn it.
Okay, other way. Where's that winch? Yeah, bump it on it. Bump. Contact. Yeah. So not the way we wanted to be sending the Patrol to King of Hammers. The engine is still in Dubai. Well, actually, it's probably mid-air right now. Just so many issues with customs, deportation, and things like that. Proving it's not stolen, but it looks fantastic. So everything else on the truck is perfect. The suspension, the wheels, the tires, the wrap, with the Nismo off-road shocks on there, which was rad. So the same shocks that come on the Forsberg Edition Frontier, we got those on the back here. So, and then the light bar that Devin whipped up for us with the Nismo off-road lights. Looks perfect. Very, very stellar. You know, all the little bits. And so we're gonna send her on out to be on display at the Yokohama booth, the full King of Hammers week. By the time you see this, there will already be some photos of it floating around, I'm sure. But yeah, so this was what it took for us to get that truck there. This truck, I should say. So, once it comes back from King of Hammers, we're gonna have that motor, we're gonna button it all up, get it back together. Happens, it's part of the journey with anytime we're doing these big crazy builds, there's delays, and usually we can, you know, whip up a plan B, but this motor is so rare. Yeah, like I said, we just move forward on everything else that we could, get it all together, put it on display, still keeping all the partners happy and showcasing what is about to be the nation's first TB48 Y60 Patrol.